Yo, what's going on, YouTube? And welcome back to Goal Line Hockey. It's your boy, Kevin Forte. Guys, we're taking a look today at our first official season outlook for every team around the NHL. We're starting off alphabetically with the Anaheim Ducks today. So stay tuned for the rest of this series. We're going to go through each team from the Anaheim Ducks all the way to the Winnipeg Jets. We're going to go through every team, look at what they've done this offseason, my expectations for them going into the season, and some of the additions, some of the guys they've lost. So we're going to be going over all of that today. So we're going to go over the Anaheim Ducks. And the Anaheim Ducks are one of those teams that I fear doing this video because I think they're going to do something. I honestly can't see the Ducks being done yet because they've only legitimately made two roster moves that really are of any significance, and they may not even play for the team next year. And those two guys they added are Mason Mctavish, who they acquired with the third overall pick in the 2021 NHL Draft. Mason Mctavish looks to be a very talented player from the Peterborough Petes, and kind of the replacement to a Ryan Getzlaf-esque player. Now, the good news is Getzy will be returning to the Anaheim Ducks in the fall. So that was another guy that they almost lost this year, but Getzlaf will stay as the captain in Anaheim. So they acquired Mason Mctavish, a guy that may or may not play in next season with the Ducks. I'm going to assume that he doesn't play. If I had to bet money on it, I would say that Mctavish goes back to the OHL. But there is the small possibility that he does make the Ducks out of training camp. So you got Mason Mctavish, and then you've got right winger Buddy Robinson, who is an unrestricted free agent. He's been bouncing around the league. I know he was playing in Ottawa with the Ottawa Senators organization for a while, and he was also somewhere else last year. I don't remember where, but Buddy Robinson kind of been bouncing around, so hopefully he finds a fit in Anaheim. And that's it. That's the only two moves that the Ducks actually made this year in terms of anything really on the roster besides AHL guys. Who did they lose? Well, they lost two guys to retiring and one guy to the expansion draft. So they didn't make any trades and they didn't lose anyone through UFA. David Backus officially retired. Not really a surprise there. He struggled with some injuries last year, and let's be honest, the Ducks aren't a team that's going to win. So maybe he just figures, you know what, time to hang up the skates, and that's it. They lose Hayden Fleury in the expansion draft. I think that's a huge loss. I think he could be the next Shea Theodore that the Ducks end up losing. And I say that as, they gave up, they made a trade last year. What was it? Daniel Sprong for Hayden Fleury or something like that. They acquired Hayden Fleury at the trade deadline. And a lot of people were questioning, is this a guy that ends up becoming expansion fodder? And he did. So a tough loss for the Ducks. Considering they're in a rebuild mode, I'm surprised that Hayden Fleury was left available. I think that's why they were trying to move out guys like Fowler and Madsen. They just weren't able to find the right deal. So they lose Hayden Fleury. And then they lose goaltender Ryan Miller, who has been in the NHL for a while. He ends up retiring as well. So they had two guys retire, one guy leave via the expansion draft, and everything else has pretty much stayed the same in Anaheim. So very interesting offseason. And it makes me wonder that, there's one of two things. Either one, they're going to rely on the young guys more. They're going to rely on the Maxime Comtois, who led the team in goals last year. They're going to rely on Isaac Lundestrom to continue to develop. Guys like Trevor Zegras, guys like Jamie Drysdale on the back end. They're going to rely on those guys to develop a little bit more. And the other alternative is there the possibility that they still go after the big fish via trade, and that's Jack Eichel. They're one of the few teams in the NHL that have the assets to acquire a Jack Eichel. They have the cap space, and they have the prospects. Now, the problem is the Buffalo Sabres have been pretty firm on they want a guy like Trevor Zegras or Jamie Drysdale in the return, and as a Ducks fan, I really don't want to see either of those guys go. Now, I do love Jack Eichel. I think he could provide a lot to the team, but to cost them guys like Zegras and Drysdale, I would probably stay away. And I think that's why Bob Murray, for the most part, has stayed away from that deal. But besides that, this is a very interesting team because you look at what they did last season, and there are a lot of questions about the Ducks and their ability to score goals. This was a team that had the worst power play in the NHL. And they're one of those teams that you just hoped maybe somebody would come up, like a Daniel Sprong, who is now in Washington. Or, some of those guys would emerge, and it just didn't happen. And like I said, who led the team in goals last season? Maxime Comtois. He had 16 goals on the season, 17 assists. That's 33 points. He led the Ducks in points. Rickard Rakell, not too far behind. He's been recently brought up over the past couple of months, even recently as this week. Rickard Rakell in terms of a trade. Cam Fowler right up there. Adam Henrique, Troy Terry, Ryan Getzlaff, Jakob Silverberg, and even Kevin Shattenkirk tops out the top 10 in terms of points. So you're just expecting more from the young guys like Zegras, Steele, Jones, Lundestrom, Alexander Volkov. You're expecting more from those young wingers as they continue to develop. And I think that's really where the Ducks are at. It's a development year. They're going to continue to do what they did last year and the year before that. They have the goaltender in John Gibson as long as they don't trade him at this point. I really hope they don't. But with $19 million in cap space, they have all their draft picks. They did give up their third-round pick in this year's draft. I'm not sure what that happened with that. But this is a team that is going to continue to, kind of shuffle the lines, especially the wingers. You have a group here that can do something. Now, the problem is that Pacific Division, it actually is going to get a little bit better. I mean, you look at some of the teams there. Seattle looks like a pretty solid team. You're going to see the LA Kings start to pick their way up. The San Jose Sharks, I still see them as a team like the Ducks that's going to struggle in that Pacific Division. The Coyotes obviously are not in that division anymore now that Seattle has come in. Teams like Vancouver, you can expect them to pick things up. Calgary may dip. So there is a possibility that this team gets into the playoffs. But again, you have Vegas, Vancouver, and Seattle, and then you throw in another one of those teams in there. One of the California teams you would think maybe, right? The LA Kings. So there are a lot of questions still. Getzlaff coming back, it's nice. He's probably going to be back here one more year, and they'll probably call it quits after this year. This is their last kind of year of rebuilding, and I could see Bob Murray going out next summer and doing what the LA Kings did this summer, picking up a guy in free agency, maybe to help solidify that center role, because Isaac Lundestrom, he can play center. Maybe they see him more as a winger. You have guys like Trevor Zegras, who obviously you expect more development from. You have guys like Raquel, Henrique. They can play center, but again, they need another center there, truthfully. And I think that's what they'll do next summer via either a trade or free agency. And I think that's why they've looked at Jack Eichel, because they do see a fit there. So I think next year, expect the Ducks to do a little bit more than they did this year. Kind of just going with the flow with Bob Murray. And maybe that's the most dangerous thing, because you're kind of laying low in the weeds and then you pounce on somebody and you make a big move. And I wouldn't be surprised if Bob Murray did that by the end of this summer. I don't necessarily think they're done yet. I'm expecting to make another video on the Ducks. But as of this point, a pretty quiet summer for Bob Murray and the Ducks. They're continuing the rebuild, and we'll see what happens next year. My predictions are they do miss the playoffs this year again. I think they have one more year where they're between 10 and 16 in terms of last in the league. I think they have one more bad year of a top 15 pick. And then from there, we'll see them start to make more moves next summer and really start to build this roster out. And don't be surprised if they maybe look at moving out some contracts, Cam Fowler, if that's even possible for them to try and improve the team and get them back to the Stanley Cup playoffs. Because at the end of the day, you could rebuild for 10 years and get nowhere. Buffalo Sabres. Or you finally take that next step. And I think Bob Murray sees that next summer. So let me know what you guys think in the comment section down below. Do you have the Anaheim Ducks getting into the playoffs next year? Because I don't know if they have it this year. I just don't see enough improvement from the team from last year. Again, guys are going to develop, but again, it's going to take time, and I think that's just part of Bob Murray and the process in Anaheim right now. So guys, thank you so much for watching this video. Stay tuned for the rest of this season outlook series as we take a look at all 32 NHL teams in alphabetical order. I look at their additions, their subtractions, kind of this same format, and go from there. So let me know what you guys think down below. Guys, thank you so much for watching, and I will see you guys next time.